Hi, I'm Dominic, and in this video I will show you two simple tricks how to improve your photos. These tips are the rule of thirds and using foreground. The nice thing about these tips is that they are related to image composition, which means you can take advantage of them when taking photos with your expensive camera equipment, and similarly well when taking photos with your smartphone. So to illustrate these two tips in this video, I will show you some landscape photos and portrait shots of this cute little friend here. So, with both tips, a portrait of the snail will change from this photo to that photo. Let's start with the rule of thirds, or basically with not using the rule of thirds, because this is what people typically tend to do. In the example of the portrait of the snail, they would place the snail and then frame it with their camera just in the center, like that. The idea is the most important subject should go to the center of the image. This is a valid idea, however from picture composition points of view, the picture might be a bit more exciting when the main subject is out of the center. Let's come to the rule of thirds. So the idea is the following. You divide your frame into 3 parts horizontally and vertically. And then your main subject should go to one of the crosses where 2 lines cross. And in the case of the snail, it means I can just slightly turn the camera, and in turn the snail is a bit out of center in the crosses. Now this photo is already a bit non-standard, I would say, which means it draws a bit more attention, which is good because you want to have your viewer enjoy taking a look at this photo. Well, the rule of thirds is not limited to portraits, but you can apply it for every photo. Let's just take a look at some landscape photos. In this photo, for example, the main subject is this nice mountain lake, and in turn it is at the lower right cross and not at the very center of the image. Of course, there are also some situations where it's hard to identify the main subject. In such situations, you can just ask yourself what is most interesting and or what draws most of the viewer's attention. In this photo, for example, it is probably the valley, either at the very end or the grassy part at the beginning. And both parts are not at the very center of the image, but shifted outside. Let's go back to the portrait of our snail, because there is one important notice when applying the rule of thirds. You want to make your main subject out of center and in a way that it looks towards the center. Let's just demonstrate the other way around. So I turn the camera and you see the snail looks out of the image, which looks a bit odd and not really satisfying. So just go back to the original version where the snail looks into the center. And also this idea of your main subject should look to the center is also valid for non-portrait photos. In this example, the bike also has kind of a viewing direction, and it is basically the one where it's going next, and therefore the bike to the right looks to the left, and therefore it is shifted to the right. 2 last comments regarding the rule of thirds. The first comment is that if your main subject is long, so for example a tree or the horizon during a sunset photo, you don't want to place it at one specific cross because it's not possible. Instead, you want to place it at one of these lines. The second comment is regarding to these grid lines which you saw in the video, because a lot of cameras and smartphones offer to show these grid lines in their display. This means already when taking your picture, you can take a look at these grid lines which help you composite your image according to the rule of thirds. Before continuing with this video, you might want to pause it for a second and just take your smartphone or your camera, what's next to you, and take a photo of the first thing you see. And just do it as usual and then think about the rule of thirds turn or move your camera slightly and take the picture once more. And then compare these two pictures and decide for yourself which might look a bit nicer and more exciting. You enjoy more taking a look at these. Let's switch to tip number 2, and this is using foreground. To illustrate this, let's take a look at this landscape photo. You see it has some nice background, which is basically the sky and the remote snow-covered mountains, and it has some midground, like the grass and forest-covered mountains. However, there is no clear foreground, and this makes the impression that what you see is somehow remote and you're not really connected to it. Let's add some foreground, and in this case it was basically moving the camera a bit to the left where this tree appeared and a bit down so you can also see the grass at the ground. And with the foreground included in the picture, the viewer has a stronger feeling that he or she is really in the scene and is not taking a look at some remote place. So it makes the viewer immerse stronger in the photo. Of course, we also want to transfer this to our portrait of the snail. Also here, it is basically just about moving the camera a bit. So at first I can move the camera a bit down so some ground comes into the frame and it already gives some nice foreground. I can even improve this foreground by moving the camera a bit to the side until the next plant comes into the frame, and you see it's now a really nice foreground, kind of framing the main subject. And again, as already mentioned for the landscape photography, think about which of these photos you feel more connected to, and in turn which you want to take a look longer. So now you learn about the rule of thirds and using foreground, and basically the similarity between both of these is that you can apply them by just moving your camera, moving or turning your camera slightly, and you get the desired effect. So I would ask you to apply these two effects just when you take your next photos. So either it's a portrait, a landscape shot, or you're just walking through a city and you take a next photo and ask yourself, okay, I'm taking this photo, can I apply the rule of thirds? You maybe turn it a bit, and can I add some foreground? So basically taking a step to the side, for example. When considering this scene of a city, like you want to take a photo of some building, and a nice option for a foreground is maybe to add some other building in the very front of you. So just take a step to the side and there is the other building, and you just hold the camera behind it so that this is just in the frame of the image. So with this I want to say thank you to you for watching this video and enjoy taking photos.